Alright everybody, it's time for the This Land is My Land Israeli-Palestinian conflict um, online screencast for the people of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Alright, so as we do delve deeper into the subject and you come across different articles and news reports and videos, these are some of the people that may come up and that you'll need to know a little background on if you're going to truly understand what's going on. So let's get started. Alright, so this is going to vary group by group or class by class. In my class, in Mr. Depker's class, we passed out just the kind of handout that has a chart that you'll need to record people's names or just write down 2 to 3 important facts about the main ideas about each people or what you're going to need to know. Ms. Fossen's class is going to do some foldables here, so I'll flip through these couple of foldable pages and you can pause there and see the directions from Ms. Fossen. So here's the first one. And here's the second one. So you guys can pause that, and hopefully you're maximizing your screen to full size so you can read that there. So that's how that foldable is supposed to go. So again, if you need that, just press pause. Alright, so let's get started here. The first person or group of people we need to know that you'll run across in the videos, in the movie we'll show, in the articles, in your textbook, and on will be what's called a Zionist. And Zionists are people, or a Zionist, singular, is a person who supports the creation of a Jewish state in the Holy Land. Now today we have a Jewish state in the Holy Land called Israel, as we learned before, but that wasn't the case as we know until 1948. So this was a movement that began in the late 1880s, and it arose from anti-Semitism that started, or anti-Jewish feelings that started in Europe, or had been going on through Europe, but worsening in the late 19th century or late 1800s. So a Zionist is a person who supports the creation of a Jewish state in the Holy Land. This is a person we need to know. Many of the Israeli leaders will learn about were kind of founding fathers of Israel that were there, maybe fought in the War of Independence, and were young men at the time of independence in the 1940s still. That generation is starting to die out, but Yitzhak Rabin is one of those men, or was one of those men. Former Prime Minister of Israel, 2 different terms. He did, as we'll learn in the history video later, he won the Nobel Peace Prize along with a couple of other people, including Yasser Arafat, for trying to make peace and signing the Oslo Accords at the White House in 1993. In 1995, because he was willing to sit down and talk with the Palestinians and the PLO and Yasser Arafat, an Israeli radical, someone who believed that Israel should have all of the land west of the Jordan River into the Mediterranean Sea that belongs to the Jews and the Jews alone. This person shot and killed Yitzhak Rabin, and it's been compared to, in Israel, the outpouring of grief and affection for the man. It's been compared to the John F. Kennedy assassination in 1963 in the United States. So that's Yitzhak Rabin, Israeli leader. Next is the current leader of Israel, the current prime minister, and he's had a couple of different terms in office. His name is Benjamin Netanyahu, and you'll see his name lately in the news a lot. He's kind of the next generation. He's the generation younger than the folks who fought in the Wars of Independence, or the War of Independence. He was against the Oslo Accords. He's generally been against much negotiation with the Palestinians. Different times he's kind of softened that stance, but most of the times he's against negotiations and peace negotiations. Publicly he'll say he's for a 2-state solution, but he's not willing to budge on much, so he's very difficult to negotiate with, as Ms. Fossen puts it here. All right, so Benjamin Netanyahu. I'll go back here. I should mention too that a lot of you'll hear these Israelis and they speak good English. Benjamin Netanyahu spent like a dozen years of his youth or something in the United States. Went to Harvard or Princeton or Yale. I believe he grew up in near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So a lot of Israelis hold dual citizenship between the United States and Israel. Next one, group of people we need to understand are called Arabs. All right, this is an ethnic group whose ancestors are Arabian. So people from the Arabian Peninsula. Today we call that Saudi Arabia, but the language, of course, is Arabic, and most in Islam or Muslims make up the greatest share of people who are Arab. But that's You can definitely find people who are Arab who are Christian, people who are Arab who are Jewish, and then lots of Arabs maybe are non-religious as well. But probably 98% or something like that. The vast majority of Arabs will be Muslim. All right, so along with Arabs, right, we talk about Palestinians. Usually Palestinians refers to these Arab Muslims in the kind of Holy Land, in the land west of the Jordan River. So the first real organization for Palestine's liberation, and the one that's most active today, is called the Palestinian Liberation Organization. That's the PLO. So you'll often hear the PLO. That's an organization that's devoted to at different times, drive out the Jews from the Holy Land and regain, in their eyes, greater, Israel for the Palestinian Arabs. So started in 1964. Most people would say it represents the Palestinian people, and its current leader is Mahmoud Abbas. All right, so that's the PLO. Next one is Fatah, and we'll have a couple of different political parties here on the side of the Palestinians or the Palestinian Arabs. Fatah is the more moderate or kind of middle of the road political party, not as extreme as the other we'll talk about in a minute, and it has been willing to negotiate with Israel in the past. It was founded by a guy named Yasser Arafat, who we'll talk about in a minute, and again, the current party leader is Mahmoud Abbas. But I think the real thing to remember here with Fatah, when they talk about it, is that it's the more moderate of the two. They're willing to kind of admit Israel exists and negotiate with Israel. Yasser Arafat is the founder of the PLO. He was a real famous world figure from the 1960s until his death in 2004. Founder of Fatah, and he's really seen, kind of, you either love or hate this guy. So if you're someone from the Middle Eastern world, or if you're a Muslim perhaps, you look at Yasser Arafat as someone to look up to, that has fought as a freedom fighter a little bit here. Now, if you're Jewish, or especially if you're Israeli, you look at Yasser Arafat, and many of those folks will see him as maybe a terrorist or someone that's not a good guy. All right, so it's kind of, you'll see a lot of this one side or the other in this unit here. And people have different opinions about different things. He actually won the Nobel Peace Prize from those Oslo Accords in the 1990s. When they tried to make a peace deal. As we said, Mahmoud Abbas, you'll see Abbas, his name, or the chairman. He is the current leader of the PLO and the current leader of that moderate political party, Fatah. Hamas is the other major political party in the West Bank and Gaza Strip in the Palestinian territories. And they're the more radical and militant. There's that word we learned before, that people are willing to kind of use violence to kind of achieve their goals. And so this is the Palestinian party that's most radical. And they refuse to admit that Israel exists or should exist as a state, and they won't negotiate for the most part. And they're often have been in the past involved in terrorist acts, so bombings of marketplaces or restaurants or buses. And currently they're in power. There's elections in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank for the Palestinians, and they're currently in power, so they're governing the Gaza Strip. And it's caused some issues over the last few years. 2008, before the last Olympics, there was kind of a Gaza offensive where the Israelis kind of attacked different places in Gaza. They were trying to root out Hamas. So Hamas and Israel do not get along. All right, the United Nations, you often hear about the United Nations trying to keep the peace, or maybe the United Nations originally kind of set up some of the boundaries here. It's basically an assembly of nations created after World War II with the goal of preventing more world wars and keeping global peace and all that business. It does not have authority. It's basically kind of it kind of speaks for the world conscience in some ways, what people around the world are thinking, these countries. But they can't do much in the way of forcing countries, to do anything. Sometimes they'll meet and they'll kind of admonish or say, "Shame on you," to a country, and you should do this, do this or that. But we'll often hear about United Nations stepping in and trying to be the kind of middleman, the peacemaker between the two sides. All right, last slide here. A couple of U.S. presidents that we'll be you often read about in the subject matter. One is Jimmy Carter, president from 1977 to 1981, former governor of Georgia. And as you see here, he's standing between the leader of Israel at the time, and I always get this name wrong, Menachem Begin on the left, and President Nasser of Egypt on the right. So that's Jimmy Carter in the middle there, and he helped broker that peace deal called the Camp David Accords in 1978, the first time that Arab countries started to negotiate with Israel. And on the right we have President Bill Clinton, whom you probably recognize, in between Yitzhak Rabin on the left and Yasser Arafat on the right. And here he is on the lawn of the White House, the south lawn of the White House, and he's shaking, he's kind of bringing together the two sides, these former enemies, and you see there's still a little bit of a chill between the two men, and as they're signing the Oslo Accords. Again, Yitzhak Rabin on the left, within a couple years, had been assassinated because of his dealings with Yasser Arafat and the PLO and the Palestinians in general. All right, there's your video, guys. Remember, the big advantage of the screencast is if you missed any of that or need to hear it again, just go back and rewatch as many times as you need. Thanks a lot. See you later.